The threat of other environmental regulations, the fact that the tax code, that the Democratic Congress could not even extend the tax cuts from 2001 and 2003 before we left to come home for the elections. So there's uncertainty about that. But at the end of the day, we need to reform the tax code so that we have a fair, comprehensive system that does encourage growth. We need to test every federal regulation, determine its economic impact on the cost of doing business.
Mr. Sowers?
Well, it's clear that government can create jobs. Where it did, under the current policies, were in Juarez and in Shanghai. The trade deals that have been passed that have not created a level playing field have shipped our jobs overseas. During Congresswoman Emerson's era, we've lost 150 factories and 16,000 manufacturing jobs. What we need to do is stop investing halfway around the world, building infrastructure in Afghanistan, and start investing right here at home. We need 21st century infrastructure. Right now, my cell and broadband network across this district is worse than what I had in Baghdad, and your tax dollars paid for that network. So we need the right investments, we need to relook and renegotiate these trade deals, and we need to start putting America first.
All right, the next question will be from Mr. Smythe, and it goes to Mr. Bill.
Mr. Bill, the Bush tax cuts will expire at the end of this year, meaning that a significant across-the-board tax increase is scheduled for 2011. What is your position on extending the tax cuts?
I think we need to extend the tax cuts on all levels. And the primary reason is because to go ahead and isolate a certain segment of our population and make them carry the whole bill is just doesn't allow people to have any incentive to produce. And that's something, as far as these progressive tax rates have been, that I've opposed for quite a while. Like I said, I think we need to go ahead and extend them and keep them going like they are right now. But we needed to do it last week. We needed to do it 3 years ago. And that way, all this uncertainty that we're going to experience now between now and the end of the year, our companies wouldn't have to do that, and that would be just one more factor that could be eliminated from their decisions. I'm also a big proponent of the fair tax. And what the fair tax does is it's a national sales tax that allows you to pay your taxes as you spend money. Otherwise, any income you would earn or anything like that wouldn't come into play. Right now, as a businessman, the first decision I look at is, how will the income taxes affect me? What will be my decisions? Can I delay taking income here, or adjust figures, or create a different type of entity for my business? But that thing is really important that you make those decisions, but it's a shame that economic decisions as far as what you're going to do to expand your business are first based on the tax code. They should be last based on the tax code. You should want to go out and hire people. You should want to go out and get involved in a new business. You should want to do these types of things. But if you sit there and you go, well, the next $10,000 I make is going to be less than the last $10,000 I made, it's very, very psychologically a disincentive for people to go to work. Thank you.
Ms. Emerson, do you have a comment?
I think in the economy as it is today, as fragile it is today, with the uncertainty there is today, one of the things that we must do is to extend all of the tax cuts until such time that the economy begins rebounding more. I spoke a little earlier about the fact that our corporations, our companies here like Cape, Procter & Gamble and others who do business worldwide, they actually get penalized by the U.S. tax code. We have the highest corporate tax rates anywhere in the entire world with the exception of Japan. And if we could shrink those tax rates, we could get more investment. Companies would want to keep more jobs here, not create them overseas, but we penalize any income that they might have because they get double taxed. I want to just make one comment to Mr. Sowers. I think that you need to have a new research firm do your firm, because the time that I've been in Congress, it is not true that we have lost 150 factories or 16,000 manufacturing jobs, although even if we lost one job, that is too much.
Mr. Sowers?
Well, I'll address that first. Congresswoman Emerson, all you need to do is go through any small town in this district, any industrial park, and you will see the closed down factories, and we can count them up. But when we're talking about tax cuts, look, in the middle of the biggest recession started by this bailout, it's no time to raise taxes. But one thing that I'm very concerned about is this massive debt that has spiraled underneath both Democrat and Republican Congresses. We've got to get serious about addressing this, and I think we do that a few ways. We stop these bailouts. We pass a balanced budget amendment, and it's time that we end these wars. Right now, we're spending $2 billion a week in Afghanistan, $400 charged to you, the taxpayer, for every gallon of gas. With those dollars, we could reimagine rural America and pay down the debt.
Mr. Van Dieven?
Well, if elected, I would vote to extend the Bush-era tax cuts, but I don't think that goes far enough. I would also support eliminating the biggest penalty on productivity, and that is the progressive income tax, but I would replace it with nothing. That sounds radical, and it would reduce the federal government budget by 40%. This would take us back to the spending levels of 1997. I don't remember people jumping out of windows or stepping over dead bodies in 1997. I will work to eliminate the progressive income tax.
All right, the next question will go to Ms. Emerson, and it comes from, I believe, Mr. Rust.
Ms. Emerson, should the federal government be involved in funding abortions or in requiring private health plans to fund abortions through health care policy mandates?
Absolutely not. The federal government should not be involved in the funding of any abortions, not on military bases, not for any type of international program to which we give funding, because those go to family planning organizations that do in fact perform abortions, and I'm dead set against it.
Mr. Sowers, a comment?
The answer to your question is a simple no, but I do want to get back to something that was just said, that we haven't lost jobs here. Congresswoman Emerson, when she came into office in 1996, the employment rate was about 5%. Now it's 9.6%. I did a 100-mile road march from Jackson down to Kennett during the 100-mile yard sale, and you walk past factory after factory after factory that used to make things here. And one of my jobs that I worked on the road was doing with one of the few manufacturers left, and I was making aircraft parts. And I looked to the woman to my right after about 2 hours of scraping aluminum burrs off an aircraft part, and I asked her if she liked her job. And she said, "I loved it." She makes something. We need to start making things here in America again and give people the pride of manufacturing.
Mr. Van Dieven?
The abortion issue has been very divisive in this country for almost 40 years. Contrary to popular belief, Roe versus Wade is very specific as to how abortion can and cannot be legislated. I consider myself to be pro-life in that I believe that all life should be protected, from the unborn to the elderly, to inmates on death row, to the soldiers and civilians that are killed in the war on terror, to the handicapped. Government is incapable of eliminating abortion. I would like to recognize the good work of my fellow pro-lifers, and I would ask them to focus on voluntary and subsidiary institutions like family, church, and adoption agencies instead of the government.
Mr. Bill?
I would be opposed to any federal money to be used for anything that involved abortion. I'm pro-life. I know whenever I was out going door to door collecting signatures, I had a guy come to me and he was obviously impaired with, I think, cerebral palsy, and he asked me, he said, "What's your opinion on federally funded stem cell research, embryonic stem cell research?" I said I would vote against it in every instance. And he said, "You know, that research might save my life." I said, "You know what? You may be right, but I'm going to represent the views of the 8th District, and I think the 8th District is pro-life, and I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear so I can get you to sign this petition and go to your neighbor and tell him just the opposite." So I have tried to be consistent And it seems like when I try to be consistent, eventually someone is not going to totally agree with me. But I'll take that chance. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Smythe has the next question, and this time it's directed to Mr. Sowers.
Mr. Sowers, do you support the President's policies in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and what should the United States be doing to address the international terrorist threat?
I do not support the President's policy, but more than that, it's really Congress's policy. I taught the Constitution at West Point, and that gives Congress, and by extension us, the power to both commence, continue, and conclude war. My main concern is that Congress has given so much power to the executive. Now, there's not a single line in the Constitution that talks about party checking party, but Congress is supposed to check the executive. Right now, the objective in Afghanistan is to train, arm, and equip an Afghan army between 400,000 to 600,000. Our current active U.S. Army is 550,000. So let's forget about all the challenges that I didn't have in Iraq. In Afghanistan, it's the second most corrupt country in the world, with a corrupt, centralized leader, with no history of a centralized government, a second-grade education, and a 7th century tribal mentality. And we're going to build an army there. My question is simple, and it's a question that Congress should be asking now, and I will ask it, being a Green Beret in Congress, is who will pay for that Afghan military once we leave? The Afghans can't. America won't forever, and training, arming, and equipping an Afghan military that will one day not be paid is not in our nation's self-interest. Now, why has this not been said in Congress? We have our lowest number of veterans in Congress since World War II. By voting for me, you're voting for an Iraq War veteran, a Ranger, and a Green Beret that can bring that perspective to Congress and finally give you a voice in what sort of conflicts we're involved in. I'll say one last thing. I've had the mission to kill and capture terrorists before they kill and capture me. And I will continue that pursuit in Congress. We must pursue them until the end. Thank you.
Mr. Van Dieven, a comment?
I disagree with the President's foreign policy also. I am the peace and prosperity candidate. No serious discussion can take place about improving the economy or creating jobs without addressing our aggressive, interventionist foreign policy. The occupation in Afghanistan is now our longest military conflict. It surpassed the Vietnam War in March of this year. Congress skirted their constitutional duties by handing the President a blank check and the keys to the military and the Authorization to Use Force Act. This has turned into an occupation and nation-building exercise. We are not hated because we wear Levi's or listen to Lady Gaga. We are hated because we are over there. I contend that our foreign policy is making us unsafe and poor. I support an immediate withdrawal of our military from the Middle East and all foreign countries.
Mr. Bill?
I think we're going to have to remain in Afghanistan. I don't think the large occupation force is necessary. I think we can operate with a small base and operate outside of these small bases with special forces, because essentially what we should be going for as a goal is the elimination of Al-Qaeda to strike us again. But really, this goes back, that's just a symptom. The source of all our problems, in my opinion, is that we do not have a policy for energy independence. When they flew into the towers, that was done with petrodollars. That's who paid for that flight training. That's who provided those people. And that's what we need to do. It's in order to get away from being involved in all these overseas exercises, we need to use our own petroleum right here in the United States. We need to go to the source of our problems instead of keep treating the symptoms, which were the invasion of Iraq and invasion of Afghanistan. Thank you.
Ms. Emerson?
As a military mom, this is kind of a tough one, but the fact of the matter is that there are people in this world who hate us, people who would do anything to destroy the freedoms that we have here in the United States, and who look for every opportunity to do that.